I'm glad y'all could be here today. We're here today to go over my action research project that you all helped me kind of develop and come up with in our PLC meetings. And the action research project that I ended up doing was all about Kagan and our students and how hopefully these skills have helped our students better in the area of comprehension. So, for the introduction part, this slide basically tells us all about DIBELS. The DIBELS, Case 21, both of those showed that our kids were really struggling in the area of comprehension and retail. It was the lowest across the board. And for the 2015-2016 school year, it showed that 58% of students were not proficient in reading comprehension. So that's over half of our class, that would not be considered distinguished or proficient. So they would be a novice or apprentice student. And for that many kids, we need them to be at least proficient on K-Prep because we're really working hard to become a school of distinction. It also showed that the student voice survey that we took last year, that's how the students felt, that they felt like they weren't having a great grasp on reading. And educators were also feel like they need a wider repertoire of research-based methods that they can use to help increase student engagement in the classroom, because they said they look out and they feel like all their kids are nodding off or asleep. So we're hoping that some of these can address those issues. So the purpose, again, of this action research study was to examine the influence of Kagan and how it's supposed to help the Kagan Cooperative Learning Structures, how it's supposed to help us in our classrooms. Increase student engagement, increase scores, increase students working together and showing compassion for each other. So and this was based on during reading, below benchmark students seem to struggle the most with the comprehension skills, mostly because since they don't have good comprehension skills, they're not engaged in the lesson. So they become disengaged because they're not interested in what we're talking about. Reading, of course, and reading comprehension are enduring skills. They need these throughout their life, no matter what job they have. Kagan structures will also help increase student engagement in our classroom, which looks really good on the new TPGS standards for the Danielson framework. So, and we're hoping just to build cooperative learning together by students working together using Kagan. So first, I had to do a literature review, and we looked at some of these articles, as you know, in a PLC. And these are just the peer-reviewed articles that I found that examine the differences between group work and cooperative learning. So in cooperative learning, the students, they're set in the 4x4 square. We have A, B, and you have a high, medium, low, and then a medium-high student that all sit together. And the students are encouraged to work together. It's not put up a black office, you're individual. So with cooperative learning, we're all about the kids working together. It's not one individual student. This is not something new. For decades, cooperative learning has been implemented in classrooms with diverse populations, not just racial or ethnic challenges, but also for special education students and gifted and talented students. So it works for all grades. In the United States, it was actually first used in racial integration, and I did not know that. So I thought that was something pretty cool. That it's been used that long, because I thought this was something like new and bright and brilliant to use, and it's been something that great teachers have been doing all along. The next one, this slide mostly talks about that there's two types of cooperative learning structures. There's either the peer tutoring or a group investigation. So peer tutoring is usually two students, your shoulder partner or your face partner, and then the group investigation is all four of the team members working together. It said in peer tutoring, experienced students or students that have mastered a task, they're helping others that haven't. And it's been found through research based on this that peer tutoring is actually better than teacher-student tutoring, because a peer sometimes can see where they're making a mistake or they've been there because they're in the same shoes as them. So it's been shown that that's a lot more effective. Again, this is looking at that again. Group grading is not cooperative learning. So we should never take a group grade when they're doing something in cooperative learning. You're using small groups in cooperative learning. It's become a major theme, but not the grading part. There have been some issues involving assessment of individual performances in groups, such as they feel like you have one student do all the work. But if you're doing Kagan correctly, no one student will be stuck with all the work, is what the research said. Everybody will have to work together to make a productive project or whatever you're having them do in class. This one here just talks about group grading and how it's not fair. We should work more towards cooperative learning and not group grading. Because group grades, they debase report cards, group grades undermine motivation, because some students aren't going to want to participate if they feel like so-and-so Sally Ann's the smartest, she'll just do it all and it'll be perfect. They take away from individual accountability, and they're often the reason that we have so many problems with parents and the students not wanting to come to school is because they don't feel like that they're important, or they don't like it that so-and-so's giving a group grade for everybody. Both your students that achieve really well and your students that are underachieving. Neither one of their parents like group grading. So we really want to try to stay away from group grading and focus more on cooperative learning. This one again, it talks about you need that heterogeneous grouping. You shouldn't have all your high students sitting together. You shouldn't have all your low students. You need a great mixture, and that's why there are 4 ability levels should be in each group to make that team. That's very crucial. And this talks about the most widely used team formation, and that is what we've been using here, is a high, 2 middle, and a low. So you have a middle high and a middle low for those two. And they need to be of different ethnicities. They need to be of different genders, different populations, readers and non-readers. All those need to be grouped together for it to truly work. It allows, by doing that, that allows greater opportunity for the peer tutoring to happen and the positive effects to occur. And like this mentioned, I love this one. It said in all major subjects, all grade levels, in urban, rural, and suburban schools, and for high, average, and low achievers, there were positive effects. So even though here at OES, we are a Title I school, which means most of the social economic status of our students is lower, this will still work for us, because even though it works in richer areas that don't have as much poverty. This one talks about the 4 parts of Kagan: the positive independence, the individual accountability, the equal participation, and the simultaneous interaction. That's what all should be going on at your group table. All right, and these were just my references for those. They did come from peer-reviewed articles. That means it's been researched. All right, these were my 2 research questions. The first one is for our PLC group, as was the action research one, and then our second one is where we took our mid-year survey. It's dealing with that. So we're going to first look at research question number 1. This was the action research. It says, what effect does implementing Kagan cooperative learning structures during whole group have on 3rd graders' reading comprehension? So we're looking at whole group, not small group or individual. We're just looking at the whole group for 3rd graders. So the justification in my research method for this was developing those comprehension strategies or skills is crucial for all students. It doesn't matter where they fall on the index. Active engagement in reading content can help improve their comprehension skills because they're up moving around. They remember things more when they're moving. You get that oxygen running through their body. During whole group, I only chose 4 Kagan strategies to use this first time around. I chose fan and pick, rally robin, rally coach, and quiz trade, because I felt like those might be the funnest for them to start out with. It seemed like it would have a lot more movement and higher engagement. And hopefully by using these, they can work together to increase engagement in activities in reading and therefore increase their comprehension skills and aid in developing a deeper understanding, not just a surface, but a deeper understanding. This just talks about my participants of the kids. I did my homeroom, so I had 24 3rd graders in there. I got lucky enough; it was 12 males and 12 females. My age ranges were very wide. I have several students that have been held back. So I have 3 8-year-olds, 11 9-year-olds, 8 10-year-olds, and 2 11-year-olds. They're all mixed ability and cognitive levels. I have gifted and talented. I have an FMD student, and I have students that receive speech. And I even have some students with a mild mental disability. And this explains on that I have the 4 students who receive speech, 2 that are gifted and talented, 2 special education, and 1 FMD. So these 6 students also receive intervention with a reading specialist for 30 minutes a day. So all those kids do get that added tier 3 intervention, just so you all know, because I didn't want that to impact our results any. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. The methodology, the instruments that I used, and we're all familiar with these, the main 3 I used were DIBELS, MAP, and the reading Case 21 benchmark. And we know that all of these are given, you give a pre-test and a post-test, and you usually have middle of the year data too. Most of the time we give them 3 times a year. Fall, winter, and spring. All right, I've talked about this again. Kagan was just this just lists the 4 Kagan strategies that I chose. And I have little things that go over each of them. I know we've been using them, but just to familiarize ourselves better. So in Rally Robin, that's two people, the face partner and shoulder partner, talk together, and they just go back and forth. Rally Coach is the one that I love the most, and I think the kids love the best too. Do y'all think that too? That's where partner A and partner B work together with the shoulder partners, and they peer tutor each other. One does a problem, and the other coaches them, and then they flip flop. The next one does a problem, and they coach them and help them to get it right. The next two, or the last two, are Quiz Trade and Fan and Pick. Quiz Trade is what I use a lot for coming up with questions out of the story. Each child gets an index card. They write a question on the front and the answer on the back, and then they get in partners and they go around the room and quiz each other. And I always tell them that the best or most outrageous questions, those really deep, probing comprehension questions, might end up on our test if they're wrote well enough. And then Fan and Pick, I use this one the most probably for vocabulary, to review vocabulary, or for context clues. It's just there's 4 students. Each student has a different role. One picks the card. The next one fans it, one fans it, one picks the card, one picks it and reads it, and the last one has to answer it. So all 4 people have a job for that individual accountability. Next, I know we've all seen this before. It's the rubric for DIBELS, how we grade that comprehension scale or where it comes from. And on the table, you have this bigger so you all can see it, because I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen. And what's highlighted is 3rd grade, since that's what I focused on. And it talked about how students in the fall need 20 plus to be considered benchmark. The winter, 26 plus, and this is words per minute that they've retold after they've read a passage. And finally in the spring, after reading a passage, in 1 minute they should be able to tell you in at least 30 words or more, the main idea and details about that passage. Basically, it's the more words they're saying. Sometimes, not all times, you have those kids that'll run on and they'll get to talking about things that didn't even happen in the story. But most of the time, the more words they have, it's the more detail they're giving, those supporting details. And that's what we're wanting to see. All right, and these, I put all 3 passages that we would have read the first time for DIBELS, our first benchmark. And so we had the famous food, the history of pizza, and you all know how this works. But first, they read as much as they can of this in a minute, and then after that, we say to the student, please retell me what you've read, or tell me what you've read about. And we score them either a 0, 1, 2, or 3 based on the details they gave. If they gave some facts and it was right, 1. If they gave several supporting details, it's a 2. And then a 3, they gave the main idea and supporting details. So they had to have all of that in there. And it gives, the retail scoring is based on that rubric and making sure they have all 3 of those crucial parts in there. And it is a combined score. So they have passage number 1, then they have passage number 2, finding an S, and passage number 3. And they take all 3 of those and average them together to get their final DIBELS score. And then there's the last one, living in Singapore. This is now, the next instrument that I used was map testing. We all map test. We know we do it for reading and math. I'm only looking at the reading results. We know it occurs 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. On the reading test, it has 53 questions, and the kids can have as much time as they want to take the test. And I know that hurts us on K-Prep, because K-Prep, everything is timed. But we tell them on math, take as much time as you need. The longer you take, the better. And we mainly use this here for RTI purposes, but that helps us in forming our Kagan groups. We really used, we were lucky, I was lucky that I didn't do my action research project till after we hit a benchmark first, the first round of them. Because this really helps me create my Kagan groups so they would be correctly seated where they need to be. And this just shows where they fell, high, medium, or low. And it's even got the boxes broke down for you, so you can click on that pinpoint when you're in NWEA, and it'll tell you that student's name. Because this is like, pretend this is a 4-square seat, you can see how many you have in each area to develop your team. So I love that part of it. That's something I think that would benefit you all too. And that way you're not constantly saying, well, who's a high student, who's a low, and trying to formulate your seatings. This will do it for you on NWEA, where you get your math results. This is just my printout. I'm sure you all have saw this before. This one is just my one for reading, and it told me that it was a breakdown, that my students' lowest areas were in informational text and vocabulary acquisition use, which are all part of why we're looking at comprehension so hard. All of those fall in comprehension, context clues, inferring, all of those go with that. And this is my, of course, 2015 data from the fall. The last instrument that I used, and we just actually finished another round of this today, was our Case 21 benchmark assessment. This was the second time we took it, or well, this picture is the second time we took it. And I showed you the language arts one. We know it's a company very much like K-Prep, and that's why we like it so much. This one they actually take 4 times a year. They're supposed to take a pre-assessment in August when they come to school, like the first couple of days of school, and then they do, the 2 formatives, 1 and 2, and then they do a post at the end of the year right before K-Prep. And so far we have took the pre-assessment and the formative. Those are the only 2 we've taken, so that's the only ones so far I have data for. I'm going to be interested to see what the rest of our data looks like after we have an entire year worth of it. And I've got these laying out on the table too for you, so you can see them better, because I know these photos where we've got the lights off so you can see the smartboard. This is a sample reading passage from the story, and then these were the questions that went along with it that show comprehension skills in the literature and the vocabulary that they need to know from reading this. This is the same paper that we've used both times to break down our data, to reflect on how many students got it right, how many students missed this, and the rationale, the reasons why we reflected on it. Was our lesson bad? Were maybe us as a teacher just not confident in teaching it? So this is really helpful to go back. And I use this a lot to make some of my graphs that I have. So the way I collected this was the students daily, not once or twice a week, but daily participated in the cooperative learning structures during reading whole group. Then they were progress monitored every other week using EDOL for the retail passages. And then also the 3 times a year, I have to mention that again, I collected data for DIBELS, MAP, and the Case 21 benchmark. Sorry, didn't want to go. This is my little DIBELS chart, and I was really pleased after this. This was the beginning of the year, BOY, and you can see how many red and yellow I had floating through here. And then in the middle of the year, I was really impressed with all my green, because I was nervous. So you can see a difference here immediately that Kagan had, or in my opinion, I feel like Kagan had a difference in it. I still have 2 red, but so red are intensive, yellow strategic, and then green shows that they have mastered that retail comprehension portion. All right, now we're getting into the data. So we're looking at the beginning of the year. Here, this pie chart's beginning of the year, and this one's middle of the year. And you can see how many green I had, how many yellow, and how many red students. So I really like this because I feel like the students have gained a tremendous amount of skills through Kagan structures and working with their peers. The below grade level, I went from 4 students to only 2 that are now below grade level. For on grade level students, I had 4 and it stayed the same, but they were different students. It was not the same students. Some were red that actually did go to yellow, and some were yellow that showed no change. And I believe that's because 2 of my students have severe attendance issues. One student was absent the day that I administered the DIBELS assessment, so they had to take it with our reading coach. And the last student, I'm testing for a specific learning disability in reading. I think that's why they struggle so much, is that that process needs to occur. And then the thing I'm most proud of is our above grade level students, or yes, the above grade level. So it went from 16 to 18, and that's a big deal in 3rd grade to really get that going. These are the comprehension retail scores, and it just shows you again, 4 out of 24 are on grade level, 18 out of 24 are above grade level, and 2 out of 24 are below grade level. So if you look at that, out of 24 students, 22 are where they need to be. So I only really have 2 now that I'm worried about. And this shows you how many words they went in. So at the beginning of the year where they were, and the middle of the year, how it fluctuated, my numbers. So I have 8 kids that were able to retell me 101 words. I now have 10 kids that are doing between 50 and 100 words in that 1 minute. In 1 minute, they can tell me that much. And then the 1 to 15 and the 16 to 50, the reason they're kind of on the lower end, they didn't read enough of the story to be able to tell me anything about it. So that's why their numbers are so low there. And I talked about how they were absent on initial test day, and they had to do it with the reading coach. They might not have felt as comfortable, so that might have impacted results a little bit. And this is just a pie graph showing you again where the students were. This one was all about how many words per minute they read. The next one is going to take a look at MAP data. where we were on that. So we're looking at, we know benchmark means they're on grade level. Above benchmark means they're above third grade level, and below benchmark means they're probably on they could be anywhere below a third grade level, second, first, kindergarten. So in the fall, I had a lot below benchmark. I had 46%. Since implementing Kagan strategies, I only have 29% that are red, and for me that was a huge jump, especially in reading. My yellow, it increased, but my red decreased. So I think a lot of those students that were red went to yellow, and then I did, of course, have some students that kind of dropped or stayed the same. But overall, based on the MAP scores, since students have been participating in the Kagan, they went up, and it actually went from 54% proficiency to 71 proficiency. So that was like a 17% increase. So that was pretty good, 17% from one semester to the next. This just shows the overall performance, and I broke it down in those categories again that I talked about. So vocabulary acquisition was the one that grew the most. It went from 7 to 9 points. Then informational was the next, not informational. Literature was the next that moved. It went from 3 to 4 points, and that was my next. Sorry about that, guys. Informational was my next one that took the highest jump. But I believe literature was the lowest growing comprehension skill for us on student growth, because that we teach in units, and really those literature-based skills, like for the different types, that we haven't got to that unit yet. But and personally, in my instance, it's all about, my kids love informational texts more. They love those nonfiction texts. So I think this really had to do with student interest too, of why those scores, why these two went up the most. And then you can see the average overall on all the categories, they went up. The green bar shows how much they went up. This one just talks about the changes in math. So 6 out of 24 of my kids regressed. That means they dropped in points from the fall. I had 3 of 24 remain stagnant. They didn't move at all. They kept the same score. But I had 15 out of 24 show an overall increase. So there was some problems when my kids MAP tested for the winter. During the test, the computers logged out, kicked me out twice from where it's computer-based on the internet. And I think that really frustrated some of them because they were on the middle of a question and cut them off. So and when kids get frustrated, you all know, it can totally affect their mood and their scores. So I think that played a lot into it. And then I said before, 4 students were absent on the initial test day, and they had to go test with Miss Hill in the computer lab, instead of me being there with them and them feeling comfortable with me. And as I mentioned before, I have some absentee issues. So if they're not here to get the content, that's not going to be reflected here, that they've grown. So we can see those scores. This breaks it down. I wanted to look at point increases. Like by how many points did they go up? What was more? How many did they decrease by? So decrease on reading math, 0 students decreased by 5 or more. The largest that they decreased by was 1 to 2 points, which is good because that means it wasn't a huge significant drop. They didn't go from like a 210 to a 200. It was just 1 to 2 points that they changed and fluctuated. But the increase, they didn't increase by 5 or more points. The majority of them didn't. The majority of them only increased by 1 to 2 points on math. So it shows that the largest percentages for both, that decreased and increased, was the 1 to 2 points. 15 out of the 24 showed a huge increase in points of a huge increase of points. And then a recent trend I've noticed by looking at some other data is students seem to do a little bit worse in the winter, and then they really blow it out of the water in the spring. So I wanted to mention that just so our data wouldn't be skewed. And we've had 11 snow days since. And that cuts into a lot of our teaching time. So they haven't maybe received that instruction yet. Now we're looking at case 21. I know we've all seen these graphs for our class. This just breaks it down for you. Their names are over here, but for purposes I had to cut that out. And it talks about the assessment results, the depth of knowledge of each question, the strain results, and the genre, where it fell. And we focus mainly on this proficiency achievement level right here. And if they got a 1, I know there are pluses and minuses out beside the name, but we just look at the 1, 2, or 3. We don't look if it was a high or a low. So 1 was novice. 9 students were novice in reading on the first administration of the benchmark. 1 student was an apprentice. 12 students were proficient at a number 3, and I only had 2 students that were at a 4 for distinguished. And 58% of the class, that's where I got that 58% of the class was not benchmarked. So over half the majority of my class was not benchmarked. Now, to my bright spot. This was our second administration of the Case 21, and now 71% of my class, so well over half, is proficient. And that was a 13-point gain. They went from 58 to 71. And again, this time I only had 3 novices, I had 4 apprentices, and I had 9 students that were proficient and 8 that were distinguished. So that was really big for me. And this, I just made it a chart a little bit different. I took their names off, but it compares how well they did with the first one to the second one, so you can see. The stars all show my proficiency students. The red little lightning bolts there, they show my 2 students or 3 students that were both stayed novice, and I'm going to explain why I feel like they did that. So now we're going to talk some data. 17 out of 24 were benchmarked. That's perfect. That's what the star represented. So that means 13 of them grew at least 1 proficiency level, and I feel like they increased because of the work we've been doing with Kagan. 10 of the 24 remained stagnant. However, 7 of those were already benchmarked. They were already above grade level. So we know it's really hard sometimes for those higher achieving students to get higher. So they stayed distinguished. So to me, that didn't bother me that bad that 7 out of them remained the same because they were already distinguished or already proficient. It is hoped by the time the 3rd one's administered that those will go up, that I won't see that stagnant, that they'll still will increase another level. 3 students out of the 10 scored a novice and didn't show growth. Again, I said I think that's related to attendance, and I got into pulling that data. Both of them have missed 16 plus days. So that's quite a bit of instruction you've missed on top of our 11 snow days that we've had. And like I said, that 1 student I am referring for a specific learning disability in reading. 0 students, though, showed regression. So none of them lost any of the comprehension skills. So to me, that's huge, that none of our students lost anything on this part. Now we're going to talk about our next steps that we feel like as a group that we would like to see happen now with what you know about Kagan. So I'm going to sit down here with you and we're just going to plan what we're going to do for those. Yeah, if you just want to come over and you can get a close up. So who has some ideas they want to share? Should we keep on doing Kagan?
I think so, but I think maybe we need some new Kagan strategies.
Some new Kagan strategies.
So they won't get bored with the ones that they already.
Has anybody done any other Kagan ones that they think would be good to you? Because I agree with you. They've been doing those same 4 and a semester plus now. So I could see how, if we want to keep them actively engaged, that we need to do that. What would be some other ones we could use?
We could use ones that hit on their multiple intelligences, maybe spatial, or the ones that like all the kinesthetic, or the artsy ones. Maybe we could try something like
Oh,
that.
I really like that, doing the multiple intelligences with Kagan. That would be another really good component to add. Are there any more that anybody thinks we should do? Anything else?
My students really enjoy them and like getting up and moving and working with
yeah.
their peers.
That does help a lot.
And it's brought a lot of teamwork for our classroom, so I think they really enjoy that too.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, building that camaraderie with the kids and them keeping on it. What do y'all think about I know we've the concentric circle one. Do you think that one might be something we could add, so we could touch on some of the multiple intelligence Kagan structures they had, and we could do the centric circles?
We could do that. We would just need to move stuff around so we could have plenty of space.
Spacing is an issue. I wonder if we talk to Ms. Huff if maybe we could use the gym some, and when it warms up, we could.
And during their planning.
Yeah, and during their planning, we could go down there when they're not using their space.
Or go outside, like you were saying.
Yeah, or go outside would be good.
That'd be a good thing to try. Maybe it's a little prettier outside.
So do y'all think we should keep doing them based on the results? Do you think
Oh,
that it worked?
I
Have you saw differences in your own?
Yeah, I love the rally coach.
The rally coach.
I think it's important too after a certain period of time to make sure you switch your seating around.
Oh.
So they don't get bored with their partner.
Oh, that would be good too.
Definitely.
That's something. That's definitely a next step we need to I need to add on there. So
It really helps with like class management, the discipline. It's a really big.
I agree, and that's not something we even looked at. And of course, like you said, if you're not having to manage your class as much or take time out of instruction to deal with behavior, that's going to help too, because you're going to have so much more instructional minutes.
Well, I like it too because you can circulate the room and you can hear discussion from every student. It's not like you're individually, but you can walk around and hear their discussions, and you can automatically stop and fix whatever misconception they have, or just give them praise for doing such a good job. So I just like it that you can hear everybody talking, everybody working at one time.
I like that too. So those are all great things. So I think that'll be, I can type that up and I can put that in there for us. I just have a few more things to share. The next one is the reflection for our classroom questions. We know that based on it, we had to look at the snow days, how that impacted stuff. We think that Kagan's very beneficial. We think it's working really well. The kids like it. We like it. So if the teachers and the kids can both be happy, that's a perfect world. We know there's been increasing in scores, not just one area, but Dibbles, Math, and Case 21. They all showed them. And to me, the numbers speak the most. 38 to 72%. That was the change we saw. That's an average of all three of my instruments used. So, and I think overall, action research is something more that we need to do at the elementary level. We need to see these new things that people bring in and want us to try, if they're working. Because if not, we need to find something better. We shouldn't keep doing something just because people tell us it works. We really need to dive in there and do the action research ourselves to see if it is working to help our kids. And now we're going to talk about our PLC research question that we did. And it says, what challenges and strengths does the mid-year assessment survey reveal about the Owensville Elementary School's third grade PLC team? And that's us. Well, some of us are on the PLC team. Others of us are in administrative roles in the school. But we all sat down and we did this together. Do y'all remember when we had to sit down and do this? So it was just the 4-page document, and I have it here just so we could, if we need to refer back to it at any time during the meeting, we can. And so I have to tell a little bit about y'all. So there are 4 self-contained third grade classrooms. We have one teacher who has taught for 34 years, and her entire career has been in second and third grade. Another one has taught from the various elementary grades. It has 8 years of teaching experience and also a master's degree in counseling. A third one has taught for 18 years, and she's nationally board certified, and she has a background in special education. And then the last one, me. I've only been teaching for 5 years in various elementary grades, and I'm earning my master's as a teacher leader. Hopefully, if this goes well, right? And then, we have one female reading interventionist. She had me in school. She's taught for 26 years, and she's now our reading coach. And she's been the reading coach for the last 10 years. She does coaching and intervention. And then our assistant principal, she was involved in this process. She's been teaching for 18 years. She's also a national board, a certified teacher. And for the last 4 years, she has been our assistant principal. And then we had Miss Becky Cove. Well, I'm not supposed to say, but Miss Becky, she came in and she was our special education teacher. We all know everybody here. So, and she's taught for 9 years, and the last 8 have been in. She served as special education coordinator or teacher for our second and third grades. This was just the printout of the survey. We know it was 4 pages. It contained the 2 Likert scales and a table chart to present out our time. And we got to put personal comments in there as well. So from this, after we did it, I took our data and I collected it, and I made some, and we've talked about it. We talked about it after we did it. We analyzed it, but I put some things in a different perspective. So that first picture you saw was about the meeting management, that section. This second page that we did was all about our teaching and learning tasks. All right, so we completed it during our PLC. And every member participated. And I was so happy that everybody participated. Because sometimes it can be hard to get everybody in one place at one time and participate and have a good discussion about it. So based on it, we said that we need better collaboration to serve our gifted and talented students and to serve our special education students. We also discussed on our mid-year survey how we need to better utilize our time. We don't feel like we're using our time during planning to the best of our ability. We could work on that. We also discussed how we need to create a monthly or weekly plan of what we're going to be doing during our PLCs. So not every time we meet is it going to be to grade together, or not every time we meet are we going to be analyzing data. There are different things we need to address. We're creating a discussion on the co-teaching model and which one would be the best to use. And we talked about, and since then we have implemented this, and I put that there, but we're also going to come back to that on our next steps and talk about how through the mid-year survey we did implement collaboration. This graph shows the different breakdown and what we said, the norms. So the scale ranged, 1 was very true for our PLC, and 4 was not true, and then in the middle, somewhat true or just true. So our norms, we're very comfortable with each other. We scored a 1.5. Our timing, we said that's something that we need to work on. Clear tasks, that's something we need to touch on. Teamwork, we're excellent on. Handling disagreements as a group, we're really well at that. It's okay to disagree with each other. And our goals. We said we all have strong goals, but that might be something we want to work on, is having clear sets of goals. So as we talked about, the best ones we had were our norms and our teamwork. We feel very comfortable with each other. The ones we're going to look at that we felt like we needed to work on the most were timing and having those clear, defined goals based on this. This one was the second page, talking about our teaching and learning tasks. You can see our scores there. So the lower the bar, the better we're doing in that area. So the two areas we felt like we needed to work on were rubrics and grading. We needed help developing those common assessments, and then grading them as a team together, looking at each other, so we don't have that bias with our rubric. Because when I grade something, Miss Atkins may not feel like that's a 3 or a 4. She might feel like that's a 2. Or something I might consider a 0, one of you I might accept as a 1. So we really talked about how we want to work on that bias and developing those great common assessments that are really aligned to the standards. This is how we spend our PLC time. I plotted it out, how much we said. So as you can see, the biggest amount of our time, the 30%, is spent analyzing data that they have took. So we felt like that was kind of too much time. Only 3% of our time is spent on instructional practices, like helping each other. Was that good? Or me saying, I need help with this. I'm not familiar with teaching this portion of reading. What can I do? And 10% was our common assessments. So I feel like the 3, the 22, and the 10 are the main things we need to work on. And those are things that we felt were the most important to us, but we don't allocate enough time for it. So we're really going to work on instructional practices, we said, planning together, and developing those common assessments. And those are all things, too, that are going to help our students. And then this was our next steps that we come up with. So we decided we're going to, we've already implemented one. We're going to continue using our resource special education teacher in the room. We're going to continue having her come in and breaking up her class, either doing small groups, or I teach half whole group and she teaches the other half whole group. We've really liked how that's been going. We're going to continue to create extensive lesson plans, detailing that co-teaching, but also detailing other things we do, so the new team members that are new to this grade level will feel comfortable with every aspect that we're teaching. They'll have those little reminders to help them. And we also decided, right now, I know we've just been doing the co-teaching, like in 2 of our rooms, we've just been doing it in math, and the other 2, we've just been doing it in reading, and now we're going to flip-flop. We said it would be a good idea to flip-flop those. So those of us that have done math are now going to do reading, and vice versa. We're really going to work on creating and editing those common assessments and putting a rubric together to limit the grading bias. We said we're going to continue to work on better managing our time, which is hard. We talked about, I believe, like the first 5 minutes would be a gab session, so we can get that out of our system, and then the rest of our hour will be spent truly working on things we need to work on, like planning out the calendars and the topics. And we plan to continue this mid-year assessment next year. We thought that right after Christmas was a great time to do it, so we can get better before K-Prep or before the end of the year, make changes that need to happen. So you all said that you wanted to keep doing that. So that was that. Reflections. Our reflections were basically the same thing. We liked doing it. As a 3rd grade, we feel as a whole, we're a great team. We feel like it benefits our students when we work together as a team, because we have such diverse class makeups. We need that co-teaching. We also feel like during our PLCs, we need to bet with RTI and differentiation and homework. We really liked the co-teacher coming in. We loved that. We said that based on the mid-year survey, we feel that overall, we're compatible, and we should stick together and keep working next year as a team. Don't move us around, hopefully. And then it showed that we want to continue meeting as a PLC group, that we don't feel like we should just stay in our rooms, that we really need to have that group mentality and come together to do things. It's better if we meet in the PLC than not meeting in a PLC and not everybody being informed on all the topics. And this is just more of that continued. One of the quotes that I love the most that came from the paper, or a comment that was made, said, "The PLCs are a great help to me and my new team member. It allows opportunities for growth and in helping me teaching the various content areas." So somebody that doesn't feel as confident in those areas, they really get a lot from us when we have PLCs. It really helps improve them, and that's what we're all about. We're all about betterment. And if we're not, I think fundamentally what it comes down to kids doing well is their teacher. Do they have a teacher that's passionate about what they're doing and that feels comfortable with it? So if we want our students to get better, we have to get better ourselves. We can never stop that process. We said we felt like all these things were doable. Nothing seems like it's to the sky and we can't do it. We feel like we can all do it. And we're just going to really work on learning how to grade together and agree and disagree on that in a good way to limit how our students are being subjected to that, so they really know what's going on. And that's all I've got for you all today. So I appreciate you all giving up our PLC time to meet today and to actually do this and to go over it. So just thank you. I appreciate it. Okay.